Love, that ever-flowing liquid fire of light, ever-expanding and illuminating truth, which is always revealed with wisdom, a spiritual nutrient necessary for vitality that is maintained through selflessness, a filter of ether that aids purity, which is love. Love, a limitless paper lantern floating into infinity on the intentions and actions of initiates of the mysteries. All right, welcome everybody. We have a special guest with us today. We have Mr. Brandon Beachum, or Beachum. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing really good, man. How you doing?
Like I was saying as we chatted a little bit before, I started off the day kind of shitty, but then I've redirected my mind a little bit and kind of gotten centered and gonna make it a great day. So I'm good.
Awesome. You know, that's one of my favorite things about doing a podcast and doing it 5 days a week. I don't really have an option to stay in that kind of funky mood in the morning if I so happen to, be in that state. It's like it's the instant remedy. As soon as I start thinking about, what I need to talk about or what I want to talk about or get to talk about, it just changes my state, and it's pretty cool when you realize, this is all kind of illusory and I can control. It's not happening to me. I'm happening to it. And from what you told me, you did some cool things to change your state, and voila, you did it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's cool when you can just like witness what's going on in your mind and disassociate from it and be like, I don't know what Ross is doing today, but this is not how I'm going to let my day go.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Very first question out of the gate, like, what are you grateful for?
What am I grateful for? Man, I am grateful for the opportunity to do this right here and right now. To be alive in this time and space is such an exciting, interesting, fascinating, time space to be around. I mean, look at how our world is changing so rapidly. There's so many things. So, people are waking up to, their true identity. Our technology is just fascinating. We're just we're on the cutting edge of experience, as Abraham would put it. And so, yeah, I'm thankful to be here and to get the opportunity to do this.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm not going to jump in much on my own personal thing, but I just want to say, like, I'm so grateful that I reached out to you and left that review forever ago, because that was such a catalyst for doing this. And it's cool because in your response that you read on your podcast, you said that you would be a guest someday. And it's cool to see all of that come to fruition. Like the labor of everything. It's surreal, man.
Isn't it beautiful? Yeah, it's, energy is a funny thing, and we set intentions and put those things out there. And next thing you know, you've realized I actually, a listener come by the studio. My studio is actually, my garage has been converted into a studio. And I was talking to this person about, manifesting and creating, and she kind of the same thing. We're standing right in front of her car and she's like, wow, it's so weird to meet you in person. And, and it's something that I set the intention to do, and I knew it would happen. And I was like, well, you're getting really good at manifestation, right? And she's like, and then she like grabs me, pulls me to the back of her car. Her license plate is manifest. It was awesome. Yeah,
that's super cool, man. Okay, next question. What quotes do you feel most moved by, like 2 or 3, and what do they mean to you?
Oh, man. Okay. Love is the answer. What was the question is probably my favorite and most used. It's just, on one hand, it's like super cliche. And on the other hand, it's like the most true statement ever. If you take any scenario and you say, what is the most loving perspective and thing that I can do now? And you then follow that. I believe that is the path to the most rewarding, joyous, fulfilling life a person can have. It's so simple and sometimes easier said than done, but love is the answer. What was the question? What are we talking about here? Oh, what would love do? Okay, I'll do that. What's the most loving response I can think of? You asked for more than one, huh? Mm-hmm. What other quotes? Where attention goes, energy flows. That's another I use all the time. it's just so true. Where am I going to focus? There's a lot that I can focus in on. There's a lot that I can point. There's so many things happening in this world that we could be horrified by. There's so many things that we can be so excited about. There's so many, I believe energy is neutral, and your reality is sort of this blank slate. Depending on where you focus your attention is what you see and drum up more of. So where attention goes, energy flows. That would be another one.
That's definitely true, man. I mean, like the thing you said about intent and like energy being neutral is so true in my perspective. From how the majority of my life was to how the past year has been, the only thing that's really changed is my perception. And I find so much validity in that. Love is the answer, again, is one of those things where it's like, even if you don't get the outcome that you want, you can know that you showed up how you wanted to in the best way possible. And then any outcome is acceptable because it's out of your control beyond how you approach it.
Awesome. And I would even make the case that the outcome is the optimal outcome, even if it doesn't appear to be so in that moment. You may do this really loving thing and then say, man, that sucks what happened next. But we're to go, a month down the road, or 10 months down the road, or 10 years down the road, or another lifetime down, or beyond this life, you are going to see that the repercussions of that ultimately, I believe you will find that they were the best possible. It puts you on the best possible trajectory.
Yeah, well said. There's like a lesson in it, or it just alters your course a little bit to where other things branch off from that.
Yeah. You don't even have to overcomplicate. It's so easy to overcomplicate things. And how do I navigate this world with so many options in any given moment? And that's such a great compass. It's like the North Star, like, oh, I'm just going to follow that and kind of let everything else go. And I dare anyone to do that test and then come back and tell me, man, that was a bad decision. It won't happen. I mean, if you spend your life doing that, I guarantee money back, guarantee your karma back, guaranteed that it will lead to good things.
That's awesome, man. I dig that. So the next question, I'm going to get a little bit of a brief thing from my perspective. Normally I let people explain this themselves, but just from what I've seen, I see you as somebody that is a consciousness shifter, a prolific creator of inspirational content and sharing your opinion and helping people find themselves. And that's just the one angle that I can see through my own aperture. But the question would be, can you explain who you are and what you do?
Oh, wow. Let's see. Who am I? I think we're all here figuring that out, and we have a little better idea each and every day as we grow and uncover more of who and what we are. Who I believe myself to be is who I know myself to be is a fractal of source energy that is chosen to incarnate in the third dimension and experience myself. I can't know that which I am unless I know that which I am not. So I've experienced hardship and trial and tribulation to some degree, as everyone has, to varying degrees. And I'm someone who's using those tools to not only have a further understanding of who I am, but what I want to choose next for myself as I co-create my reality. So in particular, I do believe we come into particular avatars, characters, if you will, from source. I believe we're eternal beings that have always been and always will be. And we choose avatars, characters. In this case, I'm the avatar Brandon Beachum, who was born, at this date and lived in this place with these parents and these, whatever, all the basics, right? Like when you're creating a video game character, you choose their attribute. You choose the attributes before you come in. It's sort of the baseline of what you'll have to work with. I believe this character, my aim, my mission was to first find myself and remember a lot of these truths about the ultimate nature of reality, who I am, where I come from, what I'm capable of, that I have, life's not happening to me, it's happening for me and through me. And first to kind of come to those realizations myself. But I believe I have sort of a unique trajectory in a sense as I learn them myself, I'm then also teaching these concepts. As I always say on my own show, we teach best what we most need to learn. So as I'm teaching the things that I've learned. Many times I'll have just learned them and I'm teaching them, Other times it's things I've known for a very, very long time, and everything in between. So I believe my primary aim with this lifetime was to discover I'm one with everything I see. Everywhere I go, I'm there waiting for myself. And once you realize that and believe that, what makes sense more than to help alleviate the pains that other yous are going through, extensions of self are going through. And, the more I do that, the more I help myself, because ultimately there are no others, I believe.
That's beautiful, man. Definitely beautiful. I dig it. Did you feel that you were different than others as a child?
Yeah, I think to some degree. And maybe, it's hard for me to relate to how others feel. Maybe everyone feels different as a child to some degree. I would suspect it's more common than maybe some would guess. But yeah, I definitely seem to go to the beat of my own drum always. I was never a follower too much. I always was just very strong-willed, strongly opinionated. Certainly had to work through a lot of the immaturity that comes with being, very bright and good with words, and maybe seeing things from perspectives that most don't, and learning how to not use that in a negative way. As a kid, I could be rough sometimes, I guess. I think of my poor brother. I'm glad he still talks to me. Or the girl in 7th grade that I still think of that I picked on. And it was just like, I look back on it now and it's like, man, like that girl had probably a rough home life. The last thing, actually, it's something that I intend to do one day, is find her and do something really great for her. And it's not like I was awful or beat anyone up, or it was more like just like, oh, here's someone to kind of pick on and make fun of. And so those are, so I had some maturity lessons. I look at my own son, who's now, a teenager, and he's just so wise. And I look back and I think, man, you're like at your, as a teenager, you're where I'm at now, So I think we all have our different trajectories and in, rate of evolution and things like that. So I definitely was different. It took me a while to really get a grasp on, some of my strengths, I suppose. I started down my own, spiritual path, if you will, 20 years ago. I started doing a podcast talking about it 2 years ago. Yet I was, very interested, and I talked about the subject to anyone who would listen. So, it's, yeah, I would say I was different, but maybe in some ways I had to learn things in a little bit slower way than, like I said, if I compare myself, which comparing is foolish, but like to my own son, it's like, man, you're so advanced for a kid, but definitely have always wanted to beat of my own drum.
That's cool, man. I can relate to a lot of what you shared in there. There's some similar threads. I think that's a cool perspective that you pointed out, that maybe everybody feels kind of different. I don't think I've had anybody answer that question where they said that they felt the same as anybody on this.
Right, exactly. Especially your guests, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But then when you really think about it, how could anybody feel the same when everybody's home life is so completely different? And when you're young, everything's a lot more polarized than it is as an adult in some senses, I feel like. Because kids are so quick to pick up little subtle differences, I feel. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Kids are so sensitive too. And it's incredible what we all go through as children. We literally get these impressions of who and what we are, in the first 6 years. And then we spend the rest of our lives trying to unpack all that. And hopefully if a lot of good was put into us, it makes our journey a little easier. If there was a lot of, abuse or negative, environment, that can really, kids spend their whole lifetimes, working through a lot of that and letting it go. And a lot of people never have that journey. It affects them, and kind of controls their perspective and behavior the rest of their lives.
Yeah, that's definitely, I've seen a lot of all of those elements of things, I would say, in people and in my own experience. So,
Yeah.
as far as feeling different, is there any specific instance that stands out as when you first noticed feeling different?
Um, let me think about that. An instance that stood out that made me feel really different. You know, I don't know if there was really something that jumps out. It wouldn't be it wouldn't be as a child. I mean, I guess when I really started opening up to a lot of spiritual concepts when I was like 21 years old or so, I started having some really interesting experiences and sort of what would be viewed as kind of magical experiences that really gave me an indication like I'm tapping into something. And then also um, sort of having such a clear knowing. I was learning about a lot of these concepts that I talk about every day now on, on my show and with guests. And at the time it was like, as I started to open up and read material that was in line with sort of my current belief system, it was just such a profound, like, knowing, and it was so logical. And to me, it was like, how does the rest of the world not know this is going on? Like, this is crazy. Like, this, my every cell of my being is like vibrating at this crazy frequency, and I understand so clearly who and what I am and what's going on, and yet no one else is hardly seeing things like this. Now my life's a little different, where I'm connected to all kinds of people who have similar belief systems and perspectives on who we are, what we are, where we come from, the ultimate nature of reality, as I put it. But at the time, it was like I was like an island. And then I started really getting some different indicators that that I would have an impact and reach a lot of people, and helping them to understand some of the things that sort of opened up really quickly for me.
Mm-hmm.
Although, I think as I'm saying all that, I do think back to a kid. If I talk to my mom, she'll, if you were to talk to my mother, she'd tell you from the time I could talk, I just had this certain air of confidence and knowing that I would do really big things, and I would talk about it like, at 5 years old. And so I guess I don't really remember those. Honestly, I don't have a lot of recollection of a lot of those early moments, but she said they started from pretty much the time I could put sentences together. So
That's pretty fascinating, man. I kind of always knew your purpose and just had to end up living into it.
exactly. We have to grow into things sometimes, for sure. And I'm still doing it.
Absolutely. It's like a lifelong process of growing into your best version of you.
Yeah, it's like your journey. Look, I mean, you went through a lot of trial and tribulation. You come out the other side of that trial and tribulation. Now you are affecting people positively that are going through the same thing. You're touching people with your show, and you realize it's sort of a part of the process, and the journey is the goal. And no one part is more important than the other. The version of me 20 years from now who is doing some very, very big things, and sort of playing a role on a particular Earth timeline, anyway, at least one of them, on center stage, doing all kinds of things that are affecting a lot of people, and really magical. It's no more important than the little kid who is being in, can I say asshole on the show?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Little kid who was being an asshole to that poor girl in 7th grade for no reason, right? So it's all part of the journey of my soul in this life. So it's all necessary components.
I definitely agree with that. No, it definitely is
Sorry.
important, man. No, go ahead. I mean,
I think it's really important for people to get that, because a lot of times so many of us spend so much time beating ourselves up for what we have or haven't done, or comparing ourselves to others, which is really foolish, because it really is always apples to oranges. We're all our own unique emanations of source, and we're all on our own unique trajectories, and judging yourself for whatever you have or haven't done is really one of the most limiting things that a person can do, because all that stuff that you now see a different perspective on and realize it was not in your best interest ultimately, and things like that, is it served you. It got you to where you're at now. But yet we get so hung up on these stories of our past, yet our past really doesn't even exist. There is no past. Show it to me, prove it to me. You can't. Like, it's not here. You can maybe show me a picture or a video or something, but you can't. It's not here now. Same with the future. The past isn't here. The future never comes like you expect. You're always in the now, right? So
yeah, the infinity
delivered
exists in now.
right.
No, dude, I definitely think that that's true as well, where it's like you can't really you have to accept your past for what it was and not necessarily be connected to it, because it's like I wouldn't be who I am had the past not happened exactly like it did. And I like who I am today because of my past. Like, it's led me to where I'm at.
Exactly, dude. And that you're a great example of someone who's taken maybe a difficult past and you've transmuted that lump of coal into a diamond, right? You've made it the spiritual phoenix rising from the ash, right? And you could have very well chosen a different path with it. Oh, I'm a loser. I did this. I got it wrong. I missed my boat. I'm not good enough. I'm not, and what would happen? That would become true. It would be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it's, I applaud you for doing what you've done and overcoming what you've overcame.
Thanks, man. Yeah. I mean, your work was definitely something that really kind of helped crystallize things. Even like the concept of not detaching from the story, like with my mental health stuff and being like, that happened. We all have mentally ill moments or whatever. Like, that still rings so true to me. Like, those are profound words of wisdom that I think I'll carry around in my soul, dude, for a very long time.
That's beautiful. It's an honor to play a role in that. And yeah, I remember that very vividly. It was a year and a half ago or something when you wrote that review. And that's the first thing that came to mind. It's like, this is a story and it's been given to you. I think of my own nephew, who's just super bright, super loving, just an awesome kid. And he has been told he has Asperger's syndrome, right? And so he's been treated as if there's something wrong with him. And so now it's unpacking and even talking to him the other day, it's like, okay, do you understand there's people with autism, with Asperger's is supposedly like sort of a mild form of autism, I guess you would say, that some of those people have some of the greatest gifts and minds that there are. So if you judge it, as Einstein said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll think it's dumb its whole life. You give it a river and watch what it can do, right? So it's just a matter of finding what it is that you're meant for. And make no mistake, anyone hearing these words, you're meant for something that is just for you. And as soon as you stop thinking, why can't I climb that tree, or judging yourself or holding on to your old story, as soon as you stop that and you can put it down and relax into the faith that there is something that's perfect for you, that no one on planet Earth is better at than you. It's why you got the role. And if you can understand that, you can get on with getting into alignment with that more fulfilling version of yourself.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah, it's like your purpose exists behind your fear, all those different fears and limiting beliefs that you keep projecting in front of you.
Absolutely. Well said.
Thank you. Next question. You kind of touched on odd experiences. Do you have any odd experiences you're willing to discuss?
Let's see. Odd experiences I'm willing to discuss. I mean, I'll discuss any odd experiences anytime. One that really, really stands out to me is one that happened a few years ago well, let me think. I've shared that one on my show a lot of times, so I don't know if I should repeat. Okay, so let me think which one. There's so many. Do you want one that's one of my favorites, or do you want one that's more recent?
Whatever you want to do, man. Recent's cool or favorite's cool. I'm cool with whatever you want to share.
Yeah. How about I'll tell recent, because it's not as grandiose or anything like that. But I've told the other one so many times and people can hear it on my show. So if you go back to episode 2 of my show, I think I tell it in great detail. But let's see. I mean, as I talk about a lot on Positive Head, it's on the podcast, I always will bring up stories of synchronicity or serendipity with my guests, because I have so many myself. I find them fascinating. And So in my life now, I find a lot of times they'll happen, and they're not necessarily, I mean, I think a lot of times with synchronicity and stuff, it's like breadcrumbs saying, hey, this is the path. You're doing well. Continue down this path. I think also, though, a lot of times it's not really telling you anything other than you are in alignment. And it's almost like a sort of an energetic reflection of the connectedness of all things. And so maybe it is always, as I think it through out loud, maybe it is always, I've never seen it where it's a bad, it's like, I'm not getting synchronicity when I'm off the track as much. So if you're getting a lot of synchronicity, that means you're on a good trail, I would say, right? The trail that you're following. That's how I interpret it. And so sometimes people, though, are looking, okay, I just got the synchronicity or weird thing. What does it mean? It doesn't really mean anything except for there's energetic reflections happening around you, and you're on a good trail. That's what I would say. Beyond that, we don't have to read into it too much, which we can sometimes tend to try and do. That's just my sort of interpretation. So this is an example of one. I don't know that it means anything more than that, but it's kind of fun and neat. Let's see, going back a few years ago, I started watching the show with my ex-partner called Outlander. And it's these days, Ross, there's so many, like, I never was big on television, but they're doing such high production quality programming now that rivals movies, and you can watch it on demand. And it's like, for me, who tends to overwork sometimes 12, 14-hour days, it's a great way to say, okay, I don't want to think about anything. I don't want to think about answering another email or another thing that's coming my way. I want to just veg out and, go into this alternate universe. So I was watching the show Outlander a few years ago, and it's about a woman who in the 1940s is in Scotland, and she touches these stones, or ends up in, like, there's like a sacred circle that happens. She ends up touching these stones and time travels back to the 1700s. And so I'm really, I'm such a nerd for time travel stuff, period. I was hooked at just, you had me at time travel, right? And so we start watching the show, and instantly I'm like, whoa, that's really odd. This woman's name is Claire Beachum. Well, my last name, Beachum, is not that common. Now, she spells it a little differently. It's like Beauchamp, which is what my ancestors, how they spelled it, but that's still pronounced Beachum. And so I'm watching it, and I hear them say Claire Beachum, and I'm like, did they just call her Claire Beachum? I'm like, right when I first started watching it. And then I check it out online, and sure enough, it's Claire Beachum. And I'm like, well, that's interesting, because my mom's name is Susan Claire Beachum. So, just not neither Claire or Beachum are the most common names, right? So I'm like, that's really interesting. Well, her husband in it is a guy named Frank. At the time when the show first came out, it's in its third season, just got released. This was season 1, several years ago. I just brought on a business partner named Frank. And so Frank, in her time, was her husband, but his ancestor 200 years back, half the show she spends in the 1700s, is a total asshole, like really bad dude. Well, at the time I thought, interesting, whatever. I just kind of observed it. Well, a few months later, this Frank character came in as a business partner of mine, ended up being a total fraud, betrayed me, and all these things, whatever. That's a story. He played a role he was meant to play for me, and I'm thankful for that. But he ended up being an asshole. Okay, from one perspective, from most perspectives. So anyway, I'm like, okay, so that, because I noticed, of course, his name being Frank, because I had just had a Frank come into my life that was an important figure, and then he ended up being what he was. So fast forward a few years later, the new season just came out, and I was like, the other night, I was like, oh, I remember this show. It's been way over a year. Okay, cool. I'll watch it. So I've been talking to actually a listener of my show whose name is Bree. And I'm going to Miami at the end of the month. She's going to come and visit. And so I've been talking to her quite a bit, and ended up helping to arrange to get her a plane ticket to come see me. And when I did it, I realized the last time I'd helped get a plane ticket for someone else was by the name of someone named Bree, another Bree. like a year or so earlier, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting little tie-in. So anyway, I'm watching the show. Here's Claire Beachum's saga goes on and on. Well, then Claire in this new season has a kid. Guess what the kid's name is? It's Bree. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, I just pointed out to this Bree I'm talking to. I was like, the synchronicity of the plane ticket thing. And so, and then I'm just like, I message her. I'm like, oh, this is really cool, really funny, whatever. Then Bree grows up in the show pretty quickly. They fast forward time a lot in the show or whatever. Now she starts dating someone, and now keep in mind, half these characters have really red hair too. Scottish, whatever. Well, my brother and sister both have like really red hair. My nephew, who I just referenced, looks almost identical to. People always can think he's a doppelganger of what's that singer's name? The redheaded singer. He's really popular. He just had the song that's the most played song on Spotify ever. I'm talking about at least, I think.
I feel like the name's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't. He's
kind of a pop singer. I like the Shape of You song. Anyway, really, really popular. Probably everyone listening, it's like, they know who I'm talking about. So anyway, it looks just like that. I'm actually going to look it up real quick because that's going to drive me crazy. So his name is Ed Sheeran. So my nephew looks almost so much like Ed Sheeran. So very red hair, So anyway, that's another little tie-in. So anyway, this character Bree grows up on the show, and she starts dating a guy. His name, Roger. My dad's name is Roger. Then Claire gets a new best friend on the show, a doctor guy. His name is Joe. My grandfather's name, my mom's dad was Joe. It just kept going on and on and on. And do I think that means something super magical other than it's sort of like energetic reflections of things in my world? And of course, the more I geek out on it and interested I get, the more things pop up,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's my kind of fun, very current synchronicity story that's been unfolding in the last few days that I got a kick out of.
That's pretty awesome, man. It's interesting because that stuff will pop up, and it's kind of like you said, sometimes there's no meaning beyond it, beyond like just being kind of like a mile marker, like a signpost, like keep going.
Yep. Yeah, you're on a good path. These choices you're making are good ones. And, here's reflections of some of it in weird ways all around you in this movie that you are directing, acting, and sort of I believe we're all the lead actor, director in our own private movie, if you will. And the universe is all happening. Everyone around you is a prop in your movie. I'm a prop in your movie right now. You're a point of source consciousness, and I'm a reflection of you in some way, and vice versa. And so, yeah.
That's a cool way to look at it.
Yeah, it is, because it really is like you are the center of your own private universe. I just was listening to something with Bashar, and he was talking about this. He's like, you're in heaven now dreaming this. It's like, you're somewhere else, and this is, you've went into a dream-like state, and this is it. And so in that heaven, you are one, you are it, you are source, you are God, if you will, for lack of a better word. But that God splits itself into all these fractals that are chips off the block, if you will, but they're all equally it's like you're a drop of the ocean, but also the ocean is contained in the drop, right? So it's all with, and then so you're having your own private experience, and everywhere you go, you're there waiting for yourself. It's all other yous, and it's all sort of props in your movie. And so in that way, I'm just you're all alone, and we're just all like playing our roles as extensions of you, and then vice versa. Because I saw a diagram one time that really drove the point home. I think it was by Nassim Haramein, brilliant physicist who's on my show once, and he showed like this. I forget his whole description with it, but this, I'm going to try and describe it. Doesn't do it justice. I wish I had the diagram to show you, but like a spinning toroidal field, like a torus, and there was focal points within it, and it was infinite, but each focal point is the center. So everything is happening around each one. You know what I mean? So in that way, I think that's what we are. We're a focal point of source consciousness, and we're the center, and everything is happening around us. But then there's other focal points, and that is just as equally the center. if that makes sense.
I get it. I can definitely understand what you're saying. I can't visualize it, but I get what you mean. Like, all of us are the center of our own universes, because how could we be anything but that, essentially?
Yeah, and if you can picture, an infinite field that's twisting in on itself, and there's focal points, there's pinpoints, but if you were to go to any one of those pinpoints, everything is happening around it. It's all, swirling around, so it becomes the center.
It's almost like infinity.
So one center, all the center, and nothing's the center.
It's like infinity shot mirrors, kind of all being individual points, and all of them looking at each other and reflecting everything else out around it.
Exactly.
That's cool. I just had to unlock my phone screen, and it was 3:33. That's kind of a cool synchronicity.
Dun, dun, dun.
This is kind of a fun question. I'm really curious to hear what your answer would be. What superpowers do you possess, or what superpower would you want?
The superpower I possess is perspective. I'm really good at finding the silver lining. I'm really good at writing the story in a way that suits me and suits those involved, and helps to create, as I always say, it's a lump of coal. And if something's apparently a lump of coal, your job is to turn it into a diamond by learning what you're meant to learn from it and seeing it from the proper perspective, knowing that it's always happening for you, not to you, is the start of that, starting from that standpoint. So I feel like I've gotten really good through a lot of talking about it and a lot of, practice, bringing on the right perspective to, not get hung up on, like I referenced, for example, a business partner, earlier, who there was betrayal involved and some kind of nasty things that were done to me. Right. But because of my perspective, I know it was actually done for me. And I've actually told a story off of that, of how that makes what's unfolding for me now, business related, more rewarding, and how there will be lessons learned for those people who were a part of my past that benefits them, or those extensions of self that maybe still need a deeper level of healing than, say, I do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So perspective, that's my long-winded answer to that question. And you had a second question. I don't remember what it was.
What superpower would you want to possess?
What's time travel?
Nice. Since you said that, I have one further question. Where would you want to go? Like, one place you could go to right now, time.
Oh man, where would I want to go? I don't know if there's one place that stands out more than others. It's like, I want to go and see it all. I'd love to go to the future and see that. I'd love to go to the past and see, events that are intriguing. I'd love to go and see, like, the character Jesus. What was he really teaching? Because, my theory is he was teaching the very same things I talk about all the time on my show. He was not, Jesus wasn't a Christian. Buddha wasn't a Buddhist. Muhammad was a Muslim. They taught love. Jesus especially, I'm most intrigued by, being raised very conservative Christian and things like that. It's like, I believe he was teaching, I and the Father are one. He was saying he was God, right? Then when they were about to, like, put him on trial to put him on the cross, he said, well, isn't it written in your old books, ye are gods? So he even then was making the argument, hold on, didn't your own books say that ye are gods? But what happened was, here's this guy who was teaching love and oneness, and I and the Father are one. And with the faith of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. That's just creating your reality with belief and law of attraction and all those things. But then he was so tuned in, he was actually creating, bending the laws of physics at times and things like that, which I think we all have the ability to do. Certainly there have been people that have done similar things, right? Lots of accounts of them. But I think the timing of this individual, the package he was put in, he was there teaching these things, and then it was misinterpreted and turned into, oh, we need to worship this person. And I feel like for a lot of people, there's this sort of bottleneck at this character that he didn't ever want. He didn't ever say, you got to worship me to find your divinity. I believe your divinity is so close, you can't miss it. You don't need any, proxy to get to God. You know, you are God, I would say, for lack of a better word. I almost don't like using that word because it's so charged, but you know, source, whatever, your higher self, it's the one that is, it's all one, ultimately one consciousness. So, you know, I think going and seeing him, checking him out would be really interesting, because I'd be willing to bet, you know, $2.53 that he was teaching exactly what we're talking about all the time, and that's become such a hot topic on our planet, you know, as people become more and more aware of their own, you know, spirituality.
Mm. Yeah, I can definitely see that. I've never been one for religion a lot myself, but throughout recovery, I've had to like really evaluate. I definitely always had a concept of a higher power, but it's like even the word God, I had to discharge myself in some ways and like use good orderly direction or just use it as like a filler word.
Mm,
But like having read
right.
the Sermon on the Mount, which is something I normally wouldn't have read, and like finding how this person portrays Jesus as like a mystic and all this kind of stuff, like I can identify
Right.
with that, and like seeing it through that lens, I definitely find so many connected points in all the mainstream religions, because it is all about love, and they have different ways that they express those same lessons, but it's all pretty similar.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. And you know what kind of, I guess, because it touches so close to home with, you know, my own family, and there's a lot of like fear taught to me, and it really affected my brother, who's pretty sensitive and a couple years younger than me. You know, fear of being tortured for eternity by, you know, this a monster named the devil or whatever, if he doesn't get it right. And there's a lot of that sort of thing out there, and I don't believe that's what, you know, when Jesus spoke about heaven or hell, or, you know, it's now you and I can be standing in the same room, and I can be in heaven, complete heaven, blissed out, and you could be in hell, you know, in your own head, in your own perspective, in your own world. So, you know, I don't believe it was a place that, you know, I believe just all of it got misconstrued
Hmm.
and turned into something that sort of has crippled some people's progress. But on the other hand, it's perfect too. It's all, there is no mistake, and it's helped some people for sure as well. So but you know, I would just, it's just one of those things I would love to see cleared up more and more. You know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I like how you kind of brought up the point that like heaven and hell is more of a mindset, and
Mm-hmm.
like it definitely shapes your reality, and it's one of those things where even purgatory is definitely a mindset. I've existed in all of those in my time on this earth, like I think most
Right.
people do at some point or another.
Right. That's it, exactly. It's like, and for that matter, you need to see experience one to experience the other. That's what we live in. You know, we come to the earthly dimension because it is, you know, the realm of duality, right? Male,
Hmm.
female, night, day, you know, up, down, left, right. It's just like everything. It's that's what 3D is about, duality. And you can't know the up without the down. You can't know love without hate. You can't know, you know, all these things. So they're all ultimately happening for love, I would say, in the end, which is the ultimate truth behind it all. And so, you know, when you can bring that understanding to all the negative stuff, it helps to give it a positive spin, right?
Hmm.
And I
Yeah,
don't believe,
trauma as a teacher, kind of pain as a teacher.
right, right. And so, you know, I don't think it's an excuse. It's what I truly believe. I believe it's always. I don't believe there's ever been a mistake. You know, I don't believe there's ever been a victim in all of eternity. And you know, some people, that's a tough one that really, you know, a lot of people struggle with. And I understand people that one struggling. You know, people struggling with that one. What about this child? They didn't do, you know, anything. And it's like, well, you really don't know the full story of that child or that child's soul. What about the child who comes in and knows all about his past life in detail, what he did, what he didn't do? They weren't created 3 years ago. If they're a 3-year-old, they incarnated in the third dimension 3 years ago. They're eternal beings. There is no time ultimately. And so they're here playing out um, their own journey, their own karmic balancing, their own, you know, all the things that they signed up for, um, as part of this, you know, human physical experience. I believe we kind of all opted into a game at some point. You know, we're source, we're eternal. we came up with an idea for a game. This is it. And you sign up and you got to go through you can't shortcut out of the maze. You got to go through it all. The ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights, the pain. You play the role. I believe you've played, Ross, the role of the evil doer, the good doer, the best friend, the worst enemy, I believe you've worn every hat in your exploration of understanding, all the variation that can exist in physical reality, as have I. I don't believe if you were to see my entire history, I could have been someone who was preaching hate and negativity because I had to go through that in order to understand that doesn't, Bashar talks about it really interestingly. He calls it the slingshot effect, where, you take like a slingshot and you pull it back, and the further it goes back into darkness, when you let it go, the further it projects into the light, right? And so when you understand that, it's like, so what's bad and what's good again? And who am I to judge where a soul's at playing out whatever they're playing out? And yes, if something happened awful, doesn't mean I condone it or anything like that. Or I'm certainly not a point in my journey where I would want to harm or do anything. That's not, this character is just in there. But if someone is experiencing that, I don't pretend to have the whole story of what those souls have been through together and what they want to accomplish now. I've heard it said, I have a friend and I talk about it a lot because, she's very psychically gifted, and she started, she was really numbing herself to her empathic nature through alcohol for years and years and years. She would drink like a bottle of vodka a day just because she was so sensitive psychically and energetically, and she didn't know how to shut it down. And when she started on her own path to healing, she started using plant medicines and ayahuasca in particular. And she's like, Brandon, as soon as I opened up to that realm again and using this plant medicine, she goes, it was incredible what I experienced, on the other side. I went to the realm of what I'll call the oversoul. And basically it's like our higher selves. And she goes, if you could see from their perspective how minuscule each of our lives is, what a blip it is. It's so insignificant in a sense, from the bigger picture of who and what we are. This life is like you dipping your pinky toe into, a pool, right? And and some of these oversouls were there watching their lives play out on the screens, kind of comparing it to screen. She's like, this is the best words I can use. Watching their lives play out, and they're really intent on what's the avatar going to do. And, it's off course. And other times they're kind of like yawning and their avatar's way off course, and they could care less because it's like inconsequential, from the grand scheme of things. And so, for us, this life is so everything, and it's the only life, and we're not even sure there is an afterlife. And if someone checks out of it, oh my gosh, whereas, I think, what comedian was it that talked about, he goes, maybe, I can't remember who it was, but he's talking about death. He goes, hold on, you mean I've got to die, merge into an infinite bliss, back to being all knowing and seeing everything and pure ecstasy? Oh man, poor me, It's like, I do believe like real truth to that. A lot of people have had near-death experiences and whatnot. They all come back a lot of times super depressed for months or years. They didn't want to come back because the freedom that they felt, the bliss compared to how dense and slow the vibration is here, how much you have to slow down your light to be in physical. And so, is it a curse if someone is taken out by an accident, or is it by design? And is it a blessing in disguise? Is it, So these are all things that I think we really need to think about and look at.
Yeah, it is one of those things where like we're able to see it from such a very small perspective. Like you had talked about your friend, and we don't really have the hardware to understand the whole scheme of everything. We can only understand it the best with what we're equipped with, really.
Yep, that's right. That's right. We're like zoomed in. It's like a deep zoom on this reality. When you can zoom out and see it from the higher perspective, it's a totally different view. And I believe, we will weep from the beauty of the perfection that is unfolding, the perfectly woven web of apparent randomness from our vantage point now. We'll see is a perfectly woven web of everyone creating and getting exactly what they need to become the next greatest and grandest version of themselves.
Mm. That's beautiful, man. I definitely, I can agree with that. Just from the things I've experienced in my own life, I would say that there's truth to that.
And if we can bring that awareness into our little view of our lives now, right? And we can just bring that, it brings a sense of peace and acceptance and relaxing into your life. You're an eternal being that's always been and always will be. Change is guaranteed. What else matters? If that's true. Relax about it. Quit taking ourselves so seriously, and you can't run out of time. You'll never get it all done, no matter what. 1 billion lifetimes from now, you'd still would not have gotten it done. Think eternity is like a mind melding, concept in itself. So, yeah, it's certainly a perspective that serves me well and brings peace, and I feel clarity to my own world. And that's the most important thing. Apply some of these ideas and see how they work for you. That's what I always say to people. Don't believe me. You're all too smart to do that anyway. Just be open enough and apply some of the concepts and see for yourself what kind of results they get you, because that really, that says it all, right?
Yeah, you really have to learn how to play with them and how to use them yourself. It's easy to believe something, but until you really start putting it into action and then maybe changing minute things and seeing how that like occurs in reality when you do those different things, or like approach reality with that kind of perspective, you don't really know, I guess. And it's like some of the things within the community of people that believe similar things, it's like I never really got the experience of. Like I can remember being into shamanism and like psychic things and stuff like that, and then through life occurring and getting a glimpse behind the veil or whatever, and witnessing a lot of that stuff firsthand, a lot of weird shit. I definitely have like learned to play around with stuff. And then by being aware and present in the now, seeing those reactions come back and being like, wow, this is what this is about. Like, cause I could tell somebody how I've achieved things, but then it's like, maybe my way won't work for them because their operating system's a little bit different.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's an important point that you make. It's like everyone's got their own unique path back. I feel like Source, we all started as one. We divided infinitely into these puzzle pieces that are now finding their way to sync back up, and like, oh, hold on, my puzzle fits with your puzzle, and we can, by coming together, the sum is greater than the equal parts. And but we're all on this unique trajectory back to Source. Separate. This is the game Source plays: separation, unification, separation, unification. It does this throughout eternity. It's how Source knows itself. Can't know that which it is unless it knows that which it is not. So it separates into infinite parts. Some of them run really fast to kind of get back to Source. Others take the long, windy road. It's all taking its own unique. No two are the same. So that's important for everyone. That's why I said earlier, it's always comparing apples and oranges, because there's only one of you, and there's only one path like yours. You need to all of us need to find faith in, I am the perfect person for my unique path. It's waiting for me to uncover it if I haven't totally figured it out. And not knowing is half the joy, right? I always compare, like, what's better, Christmas Eve? I grew up celebrating Christmas. What's better, Christmas Eve or Christmas morning? I don't know. I really enjoyed Christmas Eve. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to get. What's around the corner, And then you get it, and that's really joyful. But then it's like, well, it's over. You're like, So luckily, though, I don't think it ever truly ends. Once Christmas comes, there's another one waiting, and another one waiting, and another one waiting. So
one thing that I really want to touch on that you brought up in that is the concept of like the Christmas morning thing. There was one point in my life where I felt like I could understand, like I could know my whole future. And I don't know that it's true that I actually could, but it was like a question posed to me. If you could know your future, would you want to know it? And it really is like, no, why would I want to know all the amazing experiences I could have? Like,
yeah. You want some mystery. You want some surprise. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons we came here with amnesia. If we knew everything we knew on the other side, it would sort of defeat the purpose of the game. So it's sort of a game of cat and mouse that we play with ourselves. And
Yeah.
it's how we amuse ourselves throughout eternity. What else are you going to do?
That's awesome, man. I like it. I'm just going to ask you a couple more questions. If you had to describe your personal philosophy or condense your life experience into as few words as possible, what would they be?
My philosophy or my life experience? Into a few words as possible. Wow, that's an interesting one. Because me being someone who's overly communicative and very verbose, you kind of start making, I'm ticking. How do I get this thing? So, my, how would I condense this? I mean, the simplest thing that comes to mind that I believe sums it up in my philosophy is actually, funny enough, from the Bible. I am that I am. And that's the simplest way. What was being said there? That's a very famous scripture, right? I am that I am is how people will read it a lot of times. But I believe it was Wayne Dyer who broke it up. He said, I am that I am. So if you think of it like whatever it is you're talking about, whatever we've talked about, light, dark, any of it, I am that. And then you just, I just am. I'm all pervasive. I'm everything. Everywhere I go, I'm there waiting for myself. There are no others. The consciousness that animates my form is the same consciousness that animates your form. I'm talking to myself right now. It's a very clever illusion we've got going on here with you in the hat and with this different character and voice and all these things and these different ears that are listening, but they're all extensions of the one. And there's only one of us in the room. And so that is it. I am that. Whatever it is. So judging any of it would be really pointless when you realize it's all necessary for the experience to be pulled off.
And in the end, you're only judging yourself anyhow.
Whatever you're putting out is coming back to you because it's there are no, it's all you. And it's the greatest revelation. I can't do anything to anyone except myself. I can only deceive myself. I can only help myself. I can only, and when you realize that, it's super empowering because if you want to get something for yourself, you're in let's say someone's listening and their life's not where they want it to be or whatever. The shortcut to getting it all is first appreciating what you've got, radical appreciation and gratitude, because that energy, you're a creator. So once you drum up that vibration, everything's vibration, you attract more things that are in resonance with that vibration. And then you'll find the opportunity, and maybe even in the smallest of ways, to give away what you want for yourself symbolically, and some maybe very matter-of-factly, maybe very symbolically, to give away what you want for yourself to someone else. Always do it because you're always doing it to you. And therefore you'll feel the energetic repercussions of what you put out. It's you give away what you want for yourself. And as I say, there are no ultimately selfless acts when you understand this truth, because but this is a good kind of selfish, right? It's, love is the only thing you can give away and it multiplies. And so, you're super empowered when you understand you have the tools right where you sit to create what you want next.
I like how you mentioned about the giving away what you want, because one of the concepts of the 12-step program that I'm in, it's actually very metaphysical. It's we can only keep what we have by giving it away, which is exactly the same thing. It's such
definitely
a
wisdom. Yeah, definitely.
I got just a couple more questions for you. They're pretty quick ones too. Who inspires you?
Okay. What inspires me?
No.
You.
Who? Oh,
you. Same answer.
Well done. What books would you recommend to others, or what books impacted you the most?
Great question. Some of my favorite books that really tie it all together and explain The Ultimate Nature of Reality from a perspective that I adore is Conversations with God. It's a guy who is like homeless and started writing questions to God, started getting answers. Whether they're from God or him, I don't really think there's a real difference. Ultimately, anyway, what is the content? The content was super. It just breaks down every question you'd want to ask God about some of these concepts even I'm putting out here today. There's probably some listeners who's like, oh man, I wish I could ask him this. What about this? What about that? Well, those books go through every question you could think of. And I believe God's answers are profound and money, just spot on. So I highly recommend those books to anyone who's maybe hearing some of these concepts in a way that's intriguing them, that would like to explore further. Conversations with God, it's a trilogy. Actually, he went on to write more than 3 even. Read them all. They're really, really good. Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Some of my favorites are really big ones, really popular. Power of Now is really good at understanding ego and how to stop feeding ego in a way, put it in its proper place, if you will. It's steering the ship for most people, and understanding that your power is in the now, right? You're always in the now. Like we talked a little bit earlier, there is no past, there is no future. You're always in the now, and you're always going to be in the now. Even when you die, you're going to be in some now. You're always going to be in some now for eternity. So relax about that and find the power that resides waiting there for you. Another less known book that I read sometimes on the Positive Head podcast is, I'll pick a random chapter, is Oneness by Rasha. And that was a book, supposedly, channeled material. Don't know if it's channeled or not. I just love the content. It is, as I would put it, sort of like this handbook for ascension. Here's what's happening as you wake up and expand yourself vibrationally, and you're having these, weird experiences you're not used to happening. And here's some of the pitfalls, or some of the, just different things that you're going to experience on your journey. So it's kind of like, okay, here's what you can expect. So I really love it for that reason. Really, really profound, poetically written, just powerful book. One more would be Return of the Bird Tribes by Ken Carey. Another great book. It's a story about, another one that's supposedly channeled material. He was, on a farm. It's a huge snowstorm came in. He just went into like a trance-like state and wrote the book in a few days. And it's just so poetic and beautiful, and sort of this story of Native Americans that's untold. And then it goes from that story into a lot of what, talking about the bird tribes, those who come back at a certain point, and that they predicted in this story he recounts, that he channels, that the bird tribes would come back to Earth at this time to unite the world again. And so that one really resonates. You as a poet, you'll it's like beautiful book. Highly recommend Return of the Bird Tribes.
I'm gonna have to check that one out, man. I want to check out a lot of that stuff. I got to start compiling an actual list of all the books that people have given me, because I'm just always curious what people are reading, but I need to make the actual physical list. You want to throw out your links to all your stuff?
Yeah. I mean, the easiest way, if you search the Positive Head podcast, you'll find I do the show 5 days a week. For those of you who aren't familiar, I do one interview a week, kind of like this, on Wednesdays. And then Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, it's me just talking about, taking questions from listeners, maybe sharing, a clip from another inspirational or spiritual teacher that I really resonate with. And then I'll talk about it and break it down some more, maybe share quotes and break those down. Sometimes have co-hosts on, and always play a little bit of music. I like to play DJ at the end of the show as well. So they're shorter. They're usually 20, 30 minutes. And then on Wednesday, longer interview style format, kind of like this. So awesome. You can find, if you search Positive Head podcast, wherever there's podcast, iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, on my website, positivehead.com. If you stay tuned there, I'm actually working on an app right now that I'm real excited about. That's going to be coming out in the coming months. And so that site will be changing and transforming a bit with the release of that platform. So
cool, man. Yeah, I'll put links for all that stuff in the description below. I just want to say thank you, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate the work that you do. I appreciate you existing on this planet and doing the work that you do, man. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ross, and same right back at you. You truly are. I mean, I say that. It was kind of funny saying when you asked what my inspiration is, you, and it was kind of a jokey moment, but a serious moment as well. I mean, someone who has been told that there's mental illness and battled substance abuse and those things, and come out the other side to do what you're doing. It truly is an inspiration. You're helping yourself first and foremost, and helping to show others what's possible, and that's extremely powerful, and in a way that only someone who's been through some of those things can, you can relate to someone who's been told they had mental illness way more than I could. I wasn't told that story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dealt with substance abuse. I haven't had that journey. So I applaud you for being a brave enough soul to go down that slippery slope and to rise out of the ashes as the spiritual phoenix that you are.
Thanks, brother. One last thing that I have to ask you. Can you close us out and leave the listeners with something, words of wisdom or whatever you want to say?
Yeah, of course I can. The thing that I would like to leave everyone listening with is to something that I touched on a little bit earlier that I feel is of utmost importance, and that is to give yourself a break, to go easier on yourself. We're our own worst critics. And the problem with that is that's what cripples our progress. When you can look at yourself in the most compassionate, loving way possible, then you receive the benefit of that. It's like, however you turn your perspective is how the universe reflects back to you. So you deserve the benefit of the doubt. You deserve another chance, or you wouldn't be here. You have no obligation to hold on to any story that you've carried. You can put it down right now, like dropping a bag if you choose, or you can carry it to your grave, like chains, like, Ebenezer Scrooge carrying those chains. It's up to you. And I would say just put it down. You're here, you're tuning into these words for a reason, because you are such a close vibrational match out of all the things bombarding your ears, in this planet. And so many things vying for your attention. You somehow landed here because you're a vibrational match for this message. And that means it's time for you to step into your power the way Ross has, the way I'm doing, the way many others are, and own your divinity. Love yourself the way you deserve to be loved, and to stop beating yourself up and holding yourself back by judging yourself so harshly. Lighten up. That's enlightenment. Lighten up. Put it down. Put down what you're carrying.
Don't believe. Don't follow. Do not consume. Do not watch. Largely what I'm talking about here is reclaiming experience. This is what's been taken from us. It's a self-advancing, self-expanding, self-defining process, and it takes no prisoners.
The real world isn't a spiritual world, it isn't a material world, it isn't an empty world, it isn't a solid world. It's simply